In the last video, we explored the shadows surrounding Darth Vader, his origins, his secrets, and the chilling possibilities that still echo through the galaxy. If you haven't seen it yet, feel free to check it out after this one. It's a fascinating way to begin understanding just how deep the shadows of the Force truly go. But tonight, we're going further. This time, we won't just focus on one figure. We'll expand our view, drifting quietly through the untold corners of the Star Wars universe, from the forgotten teachings of ancient Jedi, to the hidden truths behind the Sith, to the strange powers that even the Force itself seems reluctant to reveal. This is a calm journey into mystery, meant to lull you into rest, all while opening doorways to some of the deepest, most fascinating questions the galaxy has to offer. So take a breath, let the stars come into focus, and let's begin. The mystery of Anakin Skywalker's origins. Tatooine was a place forgotten by time, a barren, sand-choked world orbiting twin suns, where life was hard and hope was rare. Traders passed through, moisture farmers clung to survival, and slaves were bought and sold like tools. Among this harsh reality, a boy was born, not in royalty, not in legend, but in quiet obscurity. His name was Anakin Skywalker, and his origin would become one of the greatest mysteries the galaxy would ever know. He wasn't born into nobility. He had no known lineage. His mother, Shmi Skywalker, spoke of his conception with a calm certainty, but also with a hint of fear. "There was no father," she said. "I carried him. I gave birth. I raised him." She didn't know how. No one did. And perhaps that's exactly how it was meant to be. The Jedi who found Anakin, Qui-Gon Jinn, saw something extraordinary in the boy. Not just his instincts or reflexes, not just his compassion or fearlessness. He saw something deeper. Anakin's connection to the Force was unlike anything ever recorded. His midi-chlorian count exceeded even Master Yoda's. He wasn't just strong in the Force. He was the Force in some strange, unsettling way. Qui-Gon believed Anakin was the chosen one, a child born of prophecy, destined to bring balance. But what is balance, really? The Jedi believed that balance meant the destruction of the Sith, an end to darkness. But balance in its truest form means equilibrium, light and dark in equal measure. That realization casts a shadow over the Jedi's interpretation. What if the prophecy never promised salvation, but transformation? Even more unsettling is the theory that Anakin's birth may not have been the will of the Force at all. The Sith legend of Darth Plagueis, the wise, speaks of a power so unnatural it could influence the Force to create life itself, a manipulation of midichlorians so precise that it could bend biology and destiny, and his apprentice, Darth Sidious, the man who became Emperor Palpatine, learned everything he knew from him. The timeline fits too well. Plagueis was alive during the years before Anakin's birth. Palpatine was gaining power within the Republic, and when Anakin was discovered, Palpatine's interest in him felt immediate, calculated, and curiously personal. He kept his distance in public, but behind closed doors, he guided Anakin like a shadow guiding a candle, always whispering, always close, but never fully seen. Some believe Anakin was created as part of a Sith experiment, a living vessel for dark side potential. If that's true, his entire life may have been manipulated from the beginning. His emotions, his attachments, his fear of loss, his need for control, were all vulnerabilities the Sith could exploit. Palpatine didn't have to turn Anakin to the dark side. He only had to wait for the right moment to reveal the path Anakin was already walking. And it worked. Anakin's fall didn't come from hate, but from love. His desperate desire to save Padme, to prevent the loss he feared most, pushed him into Palpatine's grip, and once he fell, there was no return. The Chosen One became the destroyer of the Jedi Order, the bringer of imbalance, or so it seemed. But what if this was balance? What if Anakin's destruction of the Jedi wasn't a betrayal of the prophecy, but its fulfillment? The Jedi had grown arrogant, rigid, and blind to the galaxy's suffering. They had become a reflection of the very order they claimed to oppose. Maybe Anakin's fall wasn't a failure. Maybe it was the Force resetting itself through him, burning down an old system so something new could rise. His transformation into Darth Vader became the galaxy's turning point. But even as Vader, echoes of Anakin remained. His conflict, his guilt, his love for his son. And in the end, when Vader turned on Palpatine to save Luke, perhaps that was the true moment of balance, a final act of choice, unshackled from prophecy, from Jedi dogma, and from Sith manipulation. So who was Anakin Skywalker, really? A savior or a weapon? A child of the Force or an experiment of the Sith? A symbol of hope or the galaxy's greatest cautionary tale? Maybe he was all of it at once, a paradox in motion. A life formed not just by destiny, but by design. And if that's the case, then the Force itself might be far more complex than anyone has ever understood. And Anakin Skywalker, both the boy and the man, might still be hiding secrets no one has fully uncovered. Part 2. The transformation into Vader. Not a fall, but a ritual. When the name Anakin Skywalker faded, it wasn't replaced with silence. It was consumed by a new identity, Darth Vader, a name that echoed through the galaxy like thunder behind the calm. The galaxy saw this as a tragic fall, a noble Jedi twisted by darkness, betrayed by fear. But what if it wasn't just a fall? What if it was something darker, something ceremonial? What if becoming Darth Vader was less about failure and more about initiation? The Jedi never truly understood the dark side. They feared it, preached against it, but rarely studied its depth. To the Sith, the dark side wasn't evil. It was truth, power stripped of illusion. It demanded pain. It demanded loss. It demanded transformation. And Anakin had already begun this long before Mustafar. The signs were always there. His nightmares, his anger, his love so intense it bordered on obsession. He wasn't turning dark. He was becoming complete. His humanity, his shadow, his fear, they were part of him. The Jedi taught him to reject those parts. Palpatine taught him to embrace them. But the final transformation didn't happen with a choice. It happened with a death. Mustafar wasn't just a battlefield. It was a ritual ground, fire, betrayal, a burning of identity. When Obi-Wan left him there, broken and bleeding, Anakin Skywalker truly died. Not just physically, spiritually. His body was no longer his own, his mind no longer free, his voice, his breath, mechanized, his flesh, scarred beyond recognition. The armor he wore wasn't just a prison. It was a rebirth. Every piece welded to him was a seal on his past life. But here's what most overlook. The suit wasn't designed for power. It was designed for suffering. Palpatine could have healed him, could have made him stronger. But he chose to trap Vader in pain. The armor was archaic, clunky, even primitive compared to what was possible. Why? Because pain feeds the dark side. Misery deepens it. Isolation sharpens it. Palpatine didn't want a partner. He wanted a creature of rage, an extension of his will. And so Vader became something else. He didn't sleep, not in any human sense. His chamber kept him alive, but not at peace. His dreams were not his own. They were echoes, ghosts, screams in metal corridors. He walked the corridors of star destroyers with robotic stillness, feared by officers, hated by rebels. But inside, something lingered. Not weakness, not hope, something stranger, memories. There were days he would return to Tatooine in his mind, not as a place of pain, but as a place of origin. There were nights he would see Padme, not in agony, but in silence. No words, just eyes, watching him. Sometimes he would stop mid-mission, not because of conscience, but because of confusion, as if two voices existed inside him, one that breathed through the mask, and one that remembered the boy he used to be. The transformation into Vader was not complete, because it was never meant to be. Some believe the Force never let go of Anakin Skywalker, that even as Vader carried out atrocities, As he hunted Jedi, as he crushed rebellions, there was still a current pulling at him, a whisper, a tension. The Chosen One hadn't failed his destiny. He was still moving toward it, just through darker corridors. And maybe that was the Force's plan all along, because Vader, in his darkness, in his torment, would come to a final crossroad, not in battle, not in fury, but in love. The same love that broke him would save him. Luke didn't defeat Vader. He revealed him. By choosing compassion in the face of death, Luke cracked the armor, not with a lightsaber, but with presence, with empathy. He didn't try to kill Vader. He reminded him of who he was, and in that moment, the voice that had been buried under metal and fire and years of screams finally returned. Anakin Skywalker awakened, and in that act, when he lifted Palpatine and cast him down, not out of vengeance, but out of protection, the prophecy fulfilled itself, not with a grand war, not with Jedi armies, but with one broken man, making a single choice. It wasn't a redemption arc, it was a circle completing, a ritual finishing its final step, a soul emerging from the furnace, not pure, but real, scarred, burned, and free. And that is the mystery of Darth Vader, not that he turned, but that he was meant to, and the Force never stopped watching. Part 3. Anakin's Secret Powers and Abilities. There's a truth buried beneath Anakin Skywalker's legend that few ever talk about. Not his lightsaber skill, not his daring in battle, but something else. Something strange, subtle, and not fully understood, even by the Jedi, because sometimes Anakin didn't just use the Force. It was almost like the Force followed him. Let's go back to his childhood. He was 9 years old when Qui-Gon found him, just a kid, no training, no Jedi code, but he could pod race, on a level that no other human ever had. Why? Because his reflexes were too fast, because he could see what others couldn't. But more than that, Anakin had something no one could measure. The Council confirmed it. His midichlorian count was the highest they'd ever seen. Higher than Yoda, higher than anyone. But that's just the surface, because Anakin's real power wasn't in his abilities. It was in the moments where reality itself bent around him. There are accounts from the Clone Wars, whispered from soldiers and Jedi alike. Times when Anakin would enter a battlefield and the tide would turn, not with strategy or brute strength, but with something else, something invisible, like the environment shifted around him, like luck, probability, and timing all bent in his favor. Blaster bolts would miss him by inches, enemies would trip, or freeze, or fire too late. His ship would take damage, but never enough to fall. His friends would survive situations they shouldn't, and then, just as fast, it would stop. He never noticed it, but others did. There's a theory, a quiet one among Jedi historians, that Anakin had a form of unconscious battle precognition that even the Force couldn't fully explain. Not just foresight, but manipulation, like he didn't just sense what was coming. He reshaped it. Obi-Wan once said that Anakin made impossible things look effortless, that it was like watching someone who had already seen the outcome and was simply playing along with it. But what if that wasn't just skill? What if Anakin had a deeper connection to time itself? Some even speculate that Anakin had access, perhaps unconsciously, to something the Jedi feared, the world between worlds, a realm where time doesn't flow normally, where moments can be entered, exited, and changed. While there's no record of him ever entering it, what if a part of his soul was always near it, always skimming its edge? And that's why his instincts seemed supernatural, like he was always one step ahead. But that power came with a cost, because it wasn't just Anakin's victories that felt unnatural. It was his rage too. When he lost control, it was like the Force itself cracked. Entire rooms would shake. Machinery would fail. Lightning would arc, even when he wasn't using it. The Force wasn't something he called upon. It was something that responded to him. It wasn't Jedi power. It wasn't Sith. It was something older, wilder, something the Jedi never trained for. In one account, Anakin faced off against an elite droid battalion on a desolate moon. He was outnumbered 20 to 1. And yet, within minutes, every enemy was destroyed, but not by his blade. Witnesses said it was like gravity itself collapsed. Metal twisted, circuits exploded, as if the very laws of physics around Anakin became unstable until he calmed down, and everything returned to normal. There was no explanation. The Jedi filed no report, but rumors spread. Was Anakin channeling raw cosmic energy? Did his connection to the Force go beyond training, beyond control? Was he born with a link to something far older than the Jedi, something that predates the Sith? The truth is, we may never know, because Anakin's gifts weren't just powerful. They were unstable, emotional, tied to his heart, not his mind. And that's why the Jedi feared him, because they sensed something they couldn't measure, a power not of discipline or balance, but of chaos, a storm given human form. And deep down, Anakin didn't want it. He wanted peace, love, simplicity. But power like his doesn't come quietly. It echoes, it disturbs, it hungers. And maybe it was never meant to be contained. Part 4. The Hidden Truths of Darth Vader. There is a silence that follows Darth Vader, not just the sound of his mechanical breath, but something deeper, an echo of everything he lost, and everything he chose to forget. The man who once laughed as a child, raced pod racers on Tatooine, and dreamed of freeing slaves across the galaxy, is now just a myth, buried, rewritten. We said Anakin Skywalker died on Mustafar, but perhaps that's not the whole story. Perhaps he didn't die. He was erased, replaced by a shadow so powerful, so feared, that it consumed the memory of the man beneath. Darth Vader became a symbol, a force, a warning whispered across the stars. But beneath the black mask, the man never left. And that's what makes him terrifying. Because unlike most Sith, Vader didn't ascend in glory or power. He didn't take the throne through betrayal. He fell into darkness, screaming, burning, begging for mercy that never came. His transformation wasn't a triumph, it was a punishment. And Palpatine made sure it stayed that way. The suit, the iconic armor, the respirator, the control panels across his chest, none of it was designed for strength. It was designed for limitation. Every system was deliberately archaic, outdated, fragile. Vader's movements were restricted, his vision narrowed, his pain constant, because Palpatine understood one thing better than anyone else. Pain is control. The more Vader suffered, the more the dark side would feed on him. But more importantly, the more dependent he would be on his master. Palpatine didn't want a rival. He wanted a slave, one strong enough to destroy Jedi, but broken enough to never turn on him. And yet, that's where the story gets stranger. Because Vader, despite the chains, despite the agony, began to grow in ways Palpatine never predicted. Not through rage, but through silence. He stopped speaking unless necessary. He didn't rant. He didn't lecture. He simply observed, executed, waited, and in that silence, something ancient began to awaken. There are ancient Sith, legends of beings who surpassed the boundaries of flesh, who existed in pure consciousness, moving between dimensions, between realities. Palpatine sought this knowledge obsessively, but he never shared it. Yet Vader felt it, in the void of meditation, in the stillness of space, in moments between battles, when all that remained was the sound of his breath and the pulse of his memory. He began to reach out, not with desperation, but with something older, something he barely understood. Some believe Vader was unconsciously unlocking secrets of the Force that hadn't been touched in thousands of years. And here's the twist no one expected. Palpatine noticed. He felt it. He began to worry. Because while Vader's power grew in isolation, his loyalty began to drift. It wasn't open rebellion. It wasn't revenge. It was memory. Memories of Padme's touch, of the twin sons of Tatooine, of laughter, of loss, of promises broken, of dreams that hadn't yet died. These weren't weaknesses. They were anchors, tethers to the light that Palpatine could never fully sever, and the Emperor feared that, because buried beneath the armor was Anakin Skywalker, still alive, still watching, still waiting. There were signs, moments that pierced through the darkness, when he spared Ahsoka's life, when he hesitated to strike down Luke, when he stood silently before the ruins of the Jedi Temple, saying nothing, but remembering everything, and most of all, when he asked about Padme. Is she safe? Is she all right? It was the first thing he said after becoming Vader. Not where is the Jedi Council? Not what are my orders? But is she alive? That's not the question of a Sith Lord. That's the cry of a broken husband, a shattered soul, and it never went away. Years later, when Luke faced him, when he tried to awaken the man within the monster, that spark finally caught fire. Vader didn't turn to the light out of weakness. He turned out of love, because at his core, that's what Anakin was always driven by. Love for his mother, love for Padme, love for peace. It's ironic. The Jedi feared his emotions, and the Sith tried to exploit them, but neither understood them, because Anakin's emotions were not flaws. They were his strength. They survived the fire, the betrayal, the decades of silence, and when the moment came, when Palpatine raised his hands to destroy Luke, it wasn't power that saved the boy. It was memory, it was choice, and that's the final truth of Darth Vader. He wasn't the monster the galaxy feared. He was the man who carried pain until it broke the chains. He was the Jedi who fell and then stood up again, not as a warrior, not as a hero, but as a father. And in that moment, he didn't just destroy the Emperor, he destroyed the lie that once you fall, you can never return, the lie that darkness wins, because Anakin Skywalker didn't die on Mustafar. Part 5. The Last Conversation. What Anakin never told Obi-Wan. There is a quiet in the Force, a low hum that never fades. It's not silence, but something softer, like a memory that refuses to die. And if you listen closely enough, buried beneath the wars, the betrayals, the burnt skin, and broken armor, you might still hear the echoes of a conversation that never really ended, the one between Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi, a conversation that never found its final words. Their bond was unlike anything the Jedi Order had seen in generations. Obi-Wan was never meant to be a brother. He was trained to be a knight, a servant of the code, a master of discipline, but the Force gave him a child, not just any child. The chosen one, a prophecy wrapped in fear and hope. From the moment Qui-Gon placed Anakin in Obi-Wan's hands, the weight of destiny shifted. The galaxy expected results. But what no one realized, not the Council, not the Chancellor, not even Obi-Wan himself, was that Anakin didn't just need a master, he needed a father, a guide, someone who could look past his flaws and see the storm that was building inside him. And Obi-Wan tried. Force, did he try? Through battles, arguments, laughter, and loss, he stood beside Anakin as the boy turned into a warrior. He believed in him, defended him, praised him when the Council would not. But even that belief had limits, quiet ones, invisible, but present. When Anakin cried out about visions of Padme dying, he was met with silence. When he questioned the motives of the Jedi, he was told to trust blindly. And when he pleaded for understanding, he found only rules, traditions, and a master too afraid to challenge them. There was a moment, long before Mustafar, where it could have changed. A single conversation, a walk through the temple halls, an open hand instead of a lecture. But that moment passed, and the walls grew taller. By the time Obi-Wan was sent to Utapau, it was already too late. Palpatine had filled the void. He had given Anakin what no one else would, complete belief, not just in his power, but in his pain. And when Obi-Wan returned, it wasn't as the friend Anakin had once trusted. It was as an enemy, a symbol of everything that had failed him. When the hatch opened on Mustafar, and the heat bled into the room. It wasn't just lava that boiled. It was years of love turned into betrayal. The way Anakin looked at Obi-Wan wasn't with hatred. It was with heartbreak. Because even in the darkest part of himself, some part of him still wanted to be understood, to be saved. But it didn't come. Not then. The words they exchanged, "You were my brother and I hate you," were not the full story. They were fragments, shattered pieces of a much larger truth. Because Anakin didn't hate Obi-Wan. Not truly. He hated that Obi-Wan had let go, that the man who once promised to stand beside him now stood across from him with a lightsaber drawn. And Obi-Wan didn't want to fight either. He didn't raise his blade to destroy Anakin. He raised it to stop him, to save what little might have remained. But by then, the name Anakin was already fading. Vader was already being born, not in Palpatine's throne room, but in that very duel. Yet Obi-Wan didn't kill him. He had the high ground. He had the power. But he walked away. He left him alive. And that choice, that one moment of hesitation, would echo across decades, because Obi-Wan never truly gave up on him. Somewhere inside, he believed there was still a flicker of the boy he once trained, that maybe, one day, the conversation could be finished. And it was, years later, aboard the Death Star. It wasn't loud. There was no anger in their voices, no screaming, no lava, no fire. Just two old warriors facing each other one last time, as if they knew that their journey had come full circle. They weren't just fighting. They were remembering. And when Obi-Wan looked at Vader and allowed himself to fall, it wasn't defeat. It wasn't surrender. It was forgiveness. He was speaking through the Force now, letting go of everything. And in that final moment, Vader stood over the empty robe, not triumphant, but still, because maybe, in some small way, the Force had allowed that last conversation to happen after all, not through words, not through violence, but through understanding. And somewhere deep inside that armor, Anakin Skywalker heard it, and for the first time in years, he listened. Part 6. What if Anakin never turned? In the quiet aftermath of war, the galaxy still holds its breath. The Republic is shattered, the Jedi Order broken, and the Empire is in full control. But there's a question that echoes through the ruins of what once was, a question that transcends time itself, a question that ripples through the fabric of the Force. What if Anakin Skywalker never turned? This isn't just a moment of regret, it's a question of fate. What would have happened if Anakin had resisted the temptation of the dark side? What if he had listened to the wisdom of those around him, instead of being consumed by his fear and anger? Imagine, for a moment, a galaxy where Anakin Skywalker remains a Jedi, no longer the vessel of destruction, no longer the instrument of the Sith, but the chosen one, fulfilling the prophecy in a way no one anticipated. In this world, Anakin doesn't kneel before Emperor Palpatine. He rises against him. He doesn't turn against the Jedi. He stands with them. The war doesn't end in betrayal, but in unity. Anakin's choice to remain with the Jedi alters the course of history. The dark side's influence never takes hold of him. Instead of siding with Palpatine, he exposes the Chancellor for who he truly is. With Mace Windu, Yoda, and Obi-Wan, they confront Palpatine in the Senate, revealing his manipulation to the galaxy. The truth comes to light, and Palpatine's empire crumbles before it can take shape. The Senate is freed from the iron grip of tyranny, and the Republic is restored, stronger than ever. Anakin, once feared for his power, now becomes a symbol of hope. His battle against the dark side becomes a beacon for others who have been tempted by its allure. He doesn't just destroy the Sith, he transforms them. No longer are they enemies to be vanquished, but individuals who can be redeemed. Even Darth Maul, Count Dooku, and the other Sith Lords are given a chance to change, not through destruction, but through compassion and understanding. What would this mean for the galaxy? The Jedi Order, once rigid in its doctrines, would evolve. Anakin's vision would reshape the Jedi into a more compassionate and adaptive force. They would no longer be distant guardians, but leaders who walk with the people, guiding them in the ways of peace and balance. No longer would they see love as a danger, but as a vital part of what makes a Jedi truly strong. Anakin's redemption would be their redemption too. The Jedi would embrace the idea that attachments, when handled with wisdom, do not lead to the dark side. They lead to balance. Padme would not die in the dark corners of a hidden bunker. She would live to see the day when the Republic is reborn. Together, Anakin and Padme would rebuild what the war tore apart. The galaxy would see them not as exiles or fugitives, but as the leaders of a new era. Their children, perhaps more than one, would grow up in a world of peace, not in hiding, but in the light of a galaxy that had learned from its mistakes. But the most profound change would be in Anakin himself. The boy who was once consumed by fear of loss would become the man who understood the true nature of sacrifice. He would know that love is not something to be feared, but something to be protected. His journey wouldn't be one of fall and redemption, but of steady growth, where each day he learns the true meaning of his power and responsibility. And what of the galaxy? Without the shadow of the Sith, without the Empire, the Republic would endure. It would still face challenges, of course, but it wouldn't be a government built on fear and control. It would be a republic founded on hope, unity, and the understanding that the Force, while a powerful tool, is meant to serve the galaxy, not dominate it. Anakin's legacy would be that of a Jedi who, despite his flaws, remained true to the ideals of peace and justice. He wouldn't be the tragic hero who fell from grace, but the hero who grew stronger through every trial. His children would inherit not a war-torn galaxy, but a galaxy striving for balance. His legacy would be one of hope, of compassion, and of redemption. And yet the truth is, we'll never know. We can only imagine what could have been, what would have happened if Anakin had chosen differently. But even in imagining, we begin to understand something profound about the nature of the Force. It isn't just about power. It's about choices. It's about the path we choose, even when the weight of the galaxy presses down upon us. And maybe, in the end, that's the true mystery of Anakin Skywalker. His greatest strength was never his power, but his capacity to choose. Perhaps the real mystery isn't whether Anakin could have stayed true to the light, but whether the galaxy itself was ready for him to do so. What would have happened if Anakin had lived a life untouched by darkness? Could the galaxy have evolved into something even greater? Could it have been united in peace, rather than torn apart by conflict? That, perhaps, is the true question we must ask ourselves. Not what happened, but what could have been. And in the vastness of the Force, where time and space collide in ways we can barely comprehend, maybe that's the mystery that will echo through the stars forever. Part 7. The Mystery of the Dark Side Prophecies. The dark side of the Force, a realm of power, temptation, and fear, has always been a source of intrigue and fear within the galaxy. But even more compelling are the prophecies that have surrounded its rise. Prophecies that hint at not only the fate of individuals, but the fate of the galaxy itself. These predictions, buried deep within the archives of the Jedi Temple and whispered by the Sith Lords, suggest that the dark side is not just a force of evil, it is an ancient power tied to the very fabric of the universe. One such prophecy, often overlooked by the Jedi, speaks of a chosen one, someone who will bring balance to the Force, but not in the way anyone expects. The Jedi believed this prophecy to be a sign of hope, a prophecy that spoke of the end of the Sith and the restoration of peace. But for the Sith, the prophecy was more than just a prediction. It was a blueprint for their survival. They believed that the Chosen One would bring about their ultimate rise, that their power would spread like wildfire across the galaxy, consuming the light side entirely. This belief in a mysterious balance between light and dark, a balance that would ultimately reshape the galaxy, is one of the key elements of the dark side prophecies. The idea that the Force itself is always in motion, forever seeking equilibrium, whether through peace or chaos, has haunted both the Jedi and the Sith for millennia. And at the center of this cosmic struggle is Anakin Skywalker, the one who could either save or destroy everything. For the Sith, Anakin was not just a potential Jedi savior, he was their weapon. Darth Sidious, the Emperor, saw Anakin as the key to unlocking a power greater than anything the galaxy had ever known. In his vision, Anakin's potential wasn't just about defeating the Jedi, it was about the rebirth of the Sith, ushering in a new era where the dark side would rule all. But what is truly baffling is how these prophecies seem to align with events throughout Anakin's life. From his birth on Tatooine, his mysterious rise through the Jedi ranks, to his eventual fall, the threads of fate seem to be tangled in ways that no one, not even the Sith, could have fully understood. There are whispers among the Sith that Anakin was not born by natural means, that his very existence was a product of the dark side itself, a creation designed to fulfill the prophecies of the Sith. The idea that Anakin's birth could have been engineered by the Sith as part of a grand plan to bring about their domination is a chilling thought. Did the Sith manipulate the Force itself to create a being who would be powerful enough to defeat the Jedi, yet fragile enough to fall to their will? Was Anakin's entire existence nothing more than a pawn in a cosmic game controlled by forces beyond even his comprehension? Even the Jedi, in their wisdom, were unable to grasp the full extent of the prophecy. They believed Anakin was the key to defeating the Sith, but they did not fully understand the scope of his power. They didn't realize that Anakin, with his ability to see the future, would be the one to destroy the Jedi Order and the very galaxy they swore to protect. As the galaxy descended into war, the true power of Anakin's connection to the dark side began to manifest. His dreams, once filled with visions of Padmé's death, began to grow more intense, more vivid. These visions became his obsession, a driving force that would ultimately lead him to the very edge of the dark side. But what if these visions weren't just warnings? What if they were echoes of a darker future? A future he was meant to create. What's even more mysterious is the role of Darth Sidious in these events. Sidious, or Emperor Palpatine, was no stranger to the prophecies. In fact, it's believed that he had known about Anakin long before he was discovered by Qui-Gon Jinn. Palpatine's manipulation of Anakin was not simply the work of a Sith Lord trying to gain power. It was a carefully orchestrated plan to ensure that the dark side would ultimately win, regardless of what the Jedi did. But the prophecy wasn't just about Anakin. It also spoke of the rise of the Sith, of their eventual return to power. However, as Palpatine's influence grew, the prophecy seemed to shift. Perhaps the Force itself was adjusting its balance, correcting the course of the galaxy. The more Palpatine sought to control Anakin, the more the balance began to tip. Could it be that the prophecy was meant to warn both the Jedi and the Sith, to show them that the Force cannot be controlled? That no matter how hard they tried, the true balance would only be realized when both sides of the Force were embraced, not dominated. The ultimate mystery of the dark side prophecies is not just about who will defeat the Sith, or whether the chosen one will bring balance. It's about the very nature of the Force itself, the unpredictable, ever-changing power that shapes the destinies of all who touch it. The truth hidden in the prophecies is that neither the Jedi nor the Sith can truly control it. It flows, constantly evolving, and sometimes the balance can only be realized through destruction. Part 8. The Enigma of the Force Ghosts. The Force, an energy field that binds the galaxy together, has long been a source of mystery and intrigue. While its powers are vast and varied, one of the most baffling aspects is the concept of Force Ghosts, spirits of deceased Force users who continue to exist in the physical realm. These spectral beings, able to appear to the living, are something the Jedi and the Sith struggle to comprehend. And the more we learn about them, the deeper the mystery becomes. What makes Force Ghosts so intriguing is their connection to life after death. Unlike the ordinary dead, who simply vanish into the Force, Force Ghosts retain their consciousness, their memories, and in some cases, their very presence. These spirits are not simply echoes of the past. They are active participants in the events of the galaxy, offering guidance, warnings, and sometimes even interfering in the lives of the living. The first significant case of a Force ghost occurred after the death of Qui-Gon Jinn. His passing on Naboo marked the beginning of a new era for the Jedi, one where the understanding of the Force shifted dramatically. Qui-Gon's spirit, however, did not fade away like those of other Jedi who died before him. Instead, he appeared to his former Padawan, Obi-Wan Kenobi, revealing a hidden knowledge that would change the course of the war and ultimately influence the fate of Anakin Skywalker. What makes Qui-Gon's case so unique is that he was the first Jedi to learn the secret of becoming a Force ghost. After his death, he reached out to Obi-Wan, appearing as a voice and later physically manifesting himself. He revealed that he had discovered how to retain consciousness after death, an ability that allowed him to remain active in the lives of the living. But how did he come by this power? Was it something he discovered on his own, or was it a secret passed down through the generations of Jedi and Sith, hidden away for centuries? The mystery of the Force ghost extends far beyond Qui-Gon, however. Throughout the saga, Force ghosts have appeared in key moments to guide and influence those still living. Obi-Wan Kenobi, Yoda, and even Anakin Skywalker himself returned from the afterlife to aid Luke Skywalker in his most desperate times. But why were these particular Force users able to return when others could not? Is there a secret to their power that was hidden from the galaxy at large? Perhaps the most perplexing aspect of Force ghosts is how they appear to those they wish to contact. A Force ghost does not appear to everyone. It only manifests to those with a deep connection to the Force. Luke Skywalker, for instance, was able to see the spirits of both Obi-Wan and Yoda after he had become a Jedi Knight, yet other beings, such as Han Solo, were unable to witness these spectral visitors despite their close relationships with the Force-sensitive individuals. The role of the Force ghost in the galaxy is as ambiguous as the nature of the Force itself. Are these spirits truly immortal beings who have mastered death, or are they simply echoes of the past, lingering on in the hopes of offering guidance? Some believe that Force ghosts are manifestations of the Force itself, created to maintain the balance of the universe. Others suggest that the ability to become a Force ghost is the highest form of mastery over the Force, a kind of enlightenment that allows a Jedi or Sith to transcend death. The mystery deepens when we consider the final appearance of Anakin Skywalker's Force ghost. After he was redeemed and returned to the light side of the Force, Anakin's spirit appeared to Luke on Tatooine, just as Obi-Wan and Yoda had done before him. His return was a symbol of redemption, but also a testament to the complexity of the Force. Was Anakin's redemption the key to understanding the true power of the Force ghost, or was it simply a sign that the Force, in all its complexity, can defy the rules that govern life and death? And what about the dark side of the Force? Can Sith ever become Force ghosts? Or is this ability restricted to those aligned with the light? The idea that the Sith, who seek to control and manipulate the Force, might also be able to transcend death is an unsettling thought. Could a Sith Lord, like Darth Sidious, somehow return after death, continuing their quest for power beyond the grave? As with all things related to the Force, the truth about Force ghosts remains elusive. The ability to retain one's identity after death, to remain part of the living world even after one's body has failed, is one of the greatest mysteries of Star Wars. Whether they are guides, guardians, or merely remnants of the past, Force ghosts will continue to be a powerful and enigmatic presence in the galaxy. The question remains, who else could be out there, waiting to return from the other side, to influence the destiny of the galaxy in ways we cannot yet comprehend? Part 9. The Vanished Jedi Temples and Their Forbidden Knowledge. There's something deeply unsettling about silence in a place that was once alive. Not just quiet, but a kind of absence. The kind of silence that makes you feel like the ground beneath your feet is listening. That's the kind of silence whispered about in the ancient Jedi temples that have since vanished from the galactic record. The ones that no one is supposed to know about. The ones that were hidden. Not from the Sith, but from the Jedi themselves. The Jedi Order, for all its wisdom, had secrets, layers upon layers of omission. Not all temples were sanctuaries. Some were prisons, others experiments, and then there were the ones that simply disappeared. These temples weren't built by the Republic-era Jedi. They predate Coruscant's Jedi Temple by thousands of years. Some say they were constructed before lightsabers existed, before the Jedi even used the word light side. And what's eerie is how similar they are. Across remote planets, on Lothal, Jedha, Ach, Tu, even deep in the unknown regions, ruins have been found with matching symbols, constellation alignments, rooms built to echo with specific frequencies, hallways that narrow and expand to disorient time perception. Who designed them? And more importantly, why? A handful of lost Jedi texts reference these places not as temples, but as listening towers. Places meant not to teach the Force, but to receive it. Ancient Jedi once believed the Force was more than an energy field. It was a voice, a conscious entity, not a god, but not indifferent either. These listening towers were meant to decode its will. But something changed. Something made them stop listening. A recurring theme in hidden lore is the concept of the echo, an audible phenomenon said to occur in these forgotten places when the Force itself resonates. Some Jedi Masters warned that staying inside too long would lead to visions so strong they'd replace memory, that if you meditated too long in one of these temples, the Force would start to speak directly to you, not through feelings, but words, clear, specific. And once you heard its voice, it never left you. One such structure was rumored to exist beneath the oceans of a moon-orbiting polis, a deep-sea temple built into a sinkhole, flooded and pressurized by the weight of time. Divers sent to explore it reported hearing humming vibrations in their helmets, words they couldn't translate. One never resurfaced. The other spent the rest of his life scribbling circular glyphs across thousands of sheets. He never spoke again. Then there's Jedha, the so-called Pilgrim Moon. Everyone remembers the explosion, the devastation, but almost no one talks about what was underneath it. Before it became a holy city, Jedha was the center of Force reverence in the ancient galaxy. Cults, sages, and lost Force-sensitive orders gathered there long before Jedi or Sith. There was a place deep beneath the Temple of Kabr, called the Cradle. It was sealed with no doors, no known entrances. Only those who could align their presence completely with the Force could phase through the wall. According to surviving accounts, it contained a floating shard of crystal, neither fully Kyber nor ordinary matter, emitting vibrations that didn't match any known frequency. The Force around it felt distorted, alive, watching. So why did the Jedi cover it all up? Because truth is dangerous, especially when it challenges the structure of belief. The Jedi built their order on a sense of purpose, that the light was objective and the dark was to be resisted. But what if the Force isn't divided at all? What if these temples showed them a version of the Force that couldn't be controlled or obeyed? What if the Force is beyond good and evil, and it's us who assign meaning to it? Luke Skywalker, in his later years, wandered the stars in silence. He didn't just search for students, he searched for meaning, for these places, for the why behind the Jedi, not just the how. And after decades of searching, he chose exile, not out of shame, but perhaps because he'd learned something no one was ready to hear. Maybe he found one of the vanished temples. Maybe he heard the echo. Maybe the Force told him something terrifying. And here's the part that truly unsettles. If those temples were designed to listen to the Force, then maybe the Force was trying to say something all along. Not to the Jedi, not to the Sith, but to someone else entirely. Someone who hasn't come yet. Part 10. The Sith that time forgot. Not every Sith left a legacy. Some were erased, not by Jedi, not by the Republic, but by the Sith themselves. They weren't too weak. They were too dangerous, too different, too close to understanding something that would have changed everything. There's a myth whispered in the darkest corners of Sith history, a name that isn't written in holocrons, that doesn't appear in any of the ancient archives, Darth Atronach, said to have lived during the earliest days of Sith rebellion, far before the Rule of Two, far before even Darth Bane. His name has no origin, his language untranslatable. Some Sith believed he came not from within the galaxy, but from the space between galaxies, from beyond the outer rim, from the void. He didn't rule through fear. He didn't command armies. What he offered was knowledge, dark, unfiltered, cosmic knowledge. He saw the Force not as a weapon, but as a thread that tied not just living beings, but time, memory, and identity together. He claimed he could cut that thread, unbind a soul from the timeline, remove someone completely. It terrified even the Sith. They say Darth Atronach discovered how to extract memories directly from the Force, not just visions of the future or echoes of the past, but actual memory fragments left behind in places of emotional weight, a child's laughter in a burned village, a mother's fear echoing in an abandoned starship, a Jedi's hesitation carved into the dust of a battlefield. Atronach could feel it all. And if he touched the memory long enough, he could alter it. Jedi who confronted him often returned confused, unable to recall who they were fighting or why. Their lightsabers activated against shadows, their purpose blurred, their identities fractured. Some fell to the dark side, not out of corruption, but out of sheer disorientation. They didn't know who they were anymore. And when a Sith can rewrite a Jedi's identity, rewrite their past, they become invincible in a way no lightsaber can match. So the Sith did something they had never done before. They agreed to wipe him from existence. They hunted down his writings, burned the tombs, erased his name from memory. He became a ghost, a scar on the dark side itself. No holocron speaks of him. No master dares to teach his ways. But whispers remain. Always whispers. Some say his consciousness didn't die, that it drifted into the space between minds, that when you meditate too long near the dark side, when your thoughts begin to lose form and words feel distant, it's not madness, it's him, listening, rearranging, waiting. And here's the strange part. One of Luke Skywalker's journals, discovered after his disappearance, contained a phrase written over and over again in a spiral. It wasn't Arabesh, it wasn't basic, but when translated through a Sith cipher found in an old temple, it revealed one phrase: he remembers us even when we forget him. What kind of power could do that? Not destroy worlds, not control armies, but erase memory from the Force itself. What kind of Sith would the dark side fear enough to erase? Maybe Atronach never left. Maybe his teachings survive in fragments, unconscious behaviors, forgotten rituals, voices that whisper through Sith artifacts. Maybe Snoke was a shadow of him. Maybe Palpatine found one of his lost scrolls. Or maybe Vader himself, in the quiet of his castle on Mustafar, once heard something through the obsidian walls, a voice not like the Emperor's, not like Obi-Wan's, but older, quieter, waiting. So the question isn't just who Darth Atronach was. The question is, what did he become? And if he could erase his name from history, from holocrons, even from Force memory, what else did he erase? What truths have we already forgotten? Part 11. The Voices Beneath the Jedi Temple. Most fans know the Jedi Temple on Coruscant as a beacon of light, a sacred place of learning and serenity. But few know what lies beneath it. Fewer still have questioned why the Jedi, so committed to balance, chose to build their temple on the remains of a Sith shrine. Was it an act of defiance, or a mistake? Long before the Republic, before the Jedi Order even had a name, the planet that would become Coruscant was already steeped in darkness. Buried deep beneath the surface was an ancient Sith shrine, older than Darth Bane, older than the Sith Empire, possibly even older than the Sith species themselves. A nexus point, a wound in the Force, a place where the dark side didn't just whisper, it screamed. When the Jedi discovered it, they did something strange. They didn't destroy the shrine, they built over it. They constructed their most sacred structure directly above the dark energy source they claimed to fear. The Jedi Temple wasn't a monument to peace. It was a lid on a boiling pot, a mask over something they didn't understand, but hoped to suppress. But the darkness didn't stay buried. Over centuries, Jedi stationed at the temple began reporting the same experiences, dreams of falling into endless corridors, voices calling from the floorboards, a humming beneath the meditation chambers, deep and pulsing, like a heartbeat trapped in the stone. Some even heard names, Sith names, spoken in languages no longer taught. Yoda himself, despite his wisdom and strength, once spent days in the lower levels of the temple in silence. When he emerged, he said nothing, only that the Force was not what they thought it was, and that the darkness below would one day rise again. When Anakin Skywalker walked those halls, it's said he often wandered to the edge of the archives, near the restricted sections that hadn't been opened in centuries, the Force around him distorted, as if the temple itself recognized something in him, some echo of what had been buried there long ago. And when Order 66 began, when the temple was purged and the younglings silenced, many Jedi Masters reported feeling something, not sadness, not anger, but relief, as if the darkness beneath had finally been fed, as if it had waited for blood. After the fall of the Republic, Palpatine ordered parts of the temple excavated, not destroyed, not replaced, studied. Why? What was he looking for beneath the foundation? What did he already know was there? Rumors suggest the Sith shrine beneath Coruscant was not just a building, but a seal, a cap on something far older, far more alien than Jedi or Sith, something that existed before the Force had names, a consciousness, asleep, but listening. Some even claim that the temple's spires weren't just architecture, they were conduits, antennae to focus energy downward, not to suppress the dark side, but to feed it. And now, in the Age of Ruins, with the temple long abandoned and forgotten by most, what's left beneath it? Has the darkness simply faded? Or has it grown, unnoticed, in silence, waiting for another Skywalker to walk its halls, waiting for the galaxy to forget what the Jedi tried to hide? So the next time you picture the Jedi Temple, don't just think of lightsabers and wisdom. Think of what lies beneath the floor, what's sealed in the stone, and what might be whispering. Part 12. The Unseen War of the Force Ghosts. In the Star Wars galaxy, we think of death as a moment of finality. A Jedi fades into the Force, their body disappears, and if they are truly wise, they return. A Force ghost, peaceful, glowing, enlightened. But what if there's more? What if the afterlife in the Force isn't so simple? What if there's a war still being fought after death? The ability to become one with the Force was once a forgotten path. Not all Jedi could do it. Not all should do it. Qui-Gon Jinn was among the first to rediscover it, learning it not from ancient texts, but from whispers in the Force itself. He learned to retain consciousness, to speak, to guide, but he also warned of others. Because if a Jedi can preserve their essence, what about a Sith? We've never seen a true Sith Force ghost. But there are legends. Ancient scrolls, buried deep in the archives Palpatine kept hidden, speak of echoes, dark presences, trapped between worlds, not fully dead, not fully alive, hungry, aware, and patient. And if Jedi spirits can appear to guide the living, what's to say Sith remnants don't do the same? In secret, through influence, corruption, whispered dreams that drive rulers mad, unseen fingers on the levers of destiny. There are theories that the conflict between light and dark doesn't end in death, that beyond the veil of the living Force, there's a plane where entities, once Jedi, once Sith, still struggle, not with sabers, but with memory, with emotion, with the raw energy of the Force itself. Some even claim that Yoda, Obi-Wan, and Anakin, once reunited in death, stand as guardians at the threshold of this space, watching, protecting, not just appearing to guide Rey or Luke, but holding the line against something vast, something ancient, something waiting to return. And yet what if that barrier is weakening? When Rey hears voices of Jedi past, she doesn't call them, They reach out to her, in desperation, as if the wall between worlds is thinning, as if something is breaking through. Some believe it was the rise of Palpatine's clone that disturbed the balance. Others say it's something far older, awakened by the chaos of galactic war. In certain Force-sensitive cultures, there's a story passed down in silence, that the stars themselves are not just suns, but eyes, watching. That those who pass into the Force join a cosmic choir, but that some fall into silence instead, into darkness. What if every time a Jedi becomes a Force ghost, a piece of them is left behind? And what if those fragments are being collected by something not Jedi, not Sith, something in the void? So when you hear Obi-Wan's voice in the darkness, when Yoda appears by the firelight, when Anakin returns in the glowing blue hue, don't just see peace. See the last defenders of a war we don't understand. A war fought in whispers, in memory, in shadows. The Force binds all living things, but maybe it also binds the dead. Part 13. The Disappearance of Darth Plagueis the Wise. In the forgotten corners of Star Wars lore, there exists a name wrapped in shadows, a name spoken only once in the films, and yet it echoes across the galaxy like a curse. Darth Plagueis the Wise. To some he was a myth, to others a whisper of forbidden knowledge, but to those who truly understand the ancient ways of the Sith, he was more than real. He was terrifying. Palpatine once told the story with a glint of twisted pleasure. He spoke of a Sith so powerful, so consumed by his knowledge of the dark side, that he could manipulate the Force to create life and prevent death, not through faith, not through balance, but through sheer will. Darth Plagueis had cracked the code of mortality itself. He had found a way to subvert nature, to hold on to existence even when everything else decayed. He became a god among Sith, a being who didn't just cheat death, but rewrote its rules. But the irony, according to Palpatine, Plagueis could save others from dying, but not himself. That line always sounded too clean, too poetic, too rehearsed. Because think about it, if Plagueis truly held the key to immortality, if he could command the very essence of life and death, then how could his apprentice possibly kill him in his sleep? It's almost insulting to believe it. Sith Lords don't fall like that. Not after mastering something so unnatural. Not after unraveling the deepest secrets of the Force. Number. There's something more beneath this tale. Some ancient Sith texts speak of a ritual known as the Rite of Eternal Shadow, a process not of living forever in flesh, but of transcending the body entirely, to become one with the dark side, not as a ghost like the Jedi, radiant and peaceful, but as something else, colder, hungrier, a force that infects, rather than illuminates. It's possible Plagueis never intended to remain in his physical form. Perhaps his death wasn't a mistake, but a metamorphosis. And if that's true, if Plagueis willingly left his body behind, then where's he now? Some believe he lingers in the background of galactic events, possessing hosts, moving from one vessel to another, always searching for a perfect shell, a Sith version of reincarnation. Others believe he merged with the Force itself, not in harmony like a Jedi, but as a parasite, a fracture in the Force, a darkness without end. What's even more chilling is the idea that Plagueis never truly lost control. What if Palpatine, the Emperor of the Galaxy, was never his own master? What if everything he did, the Clone Wars, the rise of the Empire, the corruption of Anakin, was guided by Plagueis, whispering from the void? It's a terrifying thought, that the most powerful Sith we've seen on screen wasn't the true architect of the galaxy's fall, that Palpatine was merely another piece, another pawn, and that somewhere, in the vast silence of the dark side, the true master still waits, waiting for the Force to shift, for the right apprentice to rise, for the perfect moment to return, not as a man, not as a ghost, but as a shadow that bends reality. There are no records of his birth, no body was ever found, no holocron carrying his final thoughts. His disappearance is not a death, It's a question, the void, a lingering silence that the Jedi never answered and the Sith never dared to challenge. And in that silence is the sound of something watching. Because if Darth Plagueis truly unlocked the power to stop death, then death was never the end. It was only the beginning of a much darker story. Part 14. The Jedi Temple's forgotten room beneath Coruscant. Beneath the bustling, endless cityscape of Coruscant, hidden deep beneath layers of ancient stone and forgotten history, there lies a chamber older than the Republic itself. Few in the galaxy have ever spoken of it, and even fewer are aware of its existence. Yet if you listen closely to the ancient whispers carried by the Force, they speak of a room buried deep under the Jedi Temple, a room so ancient, so mysteriously powerful, that it would shake the very foundations of everything the Jedi stood for if they knew what truly lay beneath their feet. It is said that this room existed long before the Jedi ever set foot on Coruscant. The stories that remain tell of an ancient structure, a place of dark rituals, long forgotten, built upon a vergence in the Force, a location so strong in its connection to the dark side that the Jedi dared not to speak of it for fear of inviting its attention. The Jedi, in their wisdom, believed they could purify this location. They believed their light could overshadow what had been placed there by a much older power. But some things cannot be cleansed. Some things cannot be erased from the galaxy's fabric. Before the Jedi arrived, before the Republic even rose from the ashes of the old Republic's fall, the Sith knew of this room. Not only did they know of it, they revered it. This room was their temple, a place of forbidden rituals, dark incantations, and knowledge that was far too dangerous for anyone to possess. The Sith had come here long before the Jedi, and in their endless hunger for power, they sought to harness whatever secrets lay within. But when the Jedi discovered the place, they made a crucial mistake. They didn't destroy it. They locked it away, hidden beneath their temple, thinking the darkness had been contained. The problem with trying to suppress the dark side of the Force is that it can never be truly silenced. You can seal it away, build walls around it, and try to protect the galaxy from it, but the dark side always finds a way out. The Jedi never fully understood the implications of what they had buried beneath their own temple, and perhaps that is why they kept their silence. Some Jedi spoke of an unease when meditating in certain chambers of the temple, as if there were an echo in the Force, a ripple, a shadow moving just beyond the edges of their awareness, an energy that seemed out of place, even for beings so attuned to the Force, a coldness, a presence that had not been there before. Jedi archives from the Old Republic mention the temple's deeper levels, but they say little about what lies beneath them. In those records, there are vague references to unusual energy readings, strange disturbances, and at times, visions, but nothing concrete. These were brushed aside, dismissed as misinterpretations or figments of imagination. But there were always those Jedi who knew better, those who could feel that something was wrong, something beyond the natural ebb and flow of the Force. It wasn't just the Jedi who were aware of the strange presence. The Sith, as early as the era of Darth Bane, were drawn to the energy beneath Coruscant. This mysterious room, its existence long hidden, was a focal point of many Sith rituals. They sought it out in secret, long before Palpatine ever ascended to power. Darth Sidious knew of it, just as he knew of every hidden power within the galaxy. For years, he made it his business to learn all he could about Coruscant's hidden depths. As Supreme Chancellor, he had access to the temple's archives, its blueprints, and more. As Darth Sidious, he made use of that knowledge, drawing ever closer to the forgotten room beneath the temple. But even before Sidious, there were whispers that not all of the Jedi Masters knew everything about their temple. Some of the Jedi who explored the temple's deepest levels reported disturbances, feelings of being watched, or hearing strange whispers echoing through the halls. They knew something was amiss, but no one had the courage to delve deeper, to explore what was hidden far below. It is said that Anakin Skywalker, even before his fall to the dark side, was drawn to these mysterious levels. During his time as a Jedi Knight, he would sometimes feel the pull of the Force guiding him toward the depths of the temple. In those moments, when he stood on the edge of the unknown, He sensed something buried there, but no one told him what it was. Perhaps no one knew for sure. But even Anakin, with his unparalleled connection to the Force, was always uncertain about what was hidden beneath the temple's foundations. After Anakin's fall to the dark side and Palpatine's rise to power, the room became a focal point for Sith rituals. Palpatine himself understood the true power of this space. It wasn't just a relic of the past. It was an untouched wellspring of dark energy, one that could amplify his control over the galaxy. He understood that if he could harness this hidden power, no force in the galaxy could stop him. The Sith had long ago left their mark on Coruscant, but with the Jedi now destroyed, Palpatine had the means to explore what had been left behind. And with Vader at his side, the Empire was ready to unlock the secrets of this hidden chamber. And yet, after all these years, the room remains a mystery. The Jedi Temple was destroyed, the Empire fell, but even now it is said the room is not gone. It still lies beneath Coruscant, forgotten by most, but not by the Force. Perhaps it is waiting for someone to uncover its true nature, a secret too dangerous for any one person to possess. And though the galaxy has moved on, there are those who believe the chamber still holds the key to understanding the ancient and dark powers that have shaped the fate of the galaxy from the shadows. Could the Jedi have truly erased its power? Could the Sith have truly harnessed its potential? Or is this room still hidden beneath the layers of Coruscant, waiting for the right person, or the wrong one, to unlock its secrets? Perhaps it will remain buried, just like the rest of the mysteries within the Force. Part 15. The Temple of Mortis, the forgotten realm beyond the Force. Buried deep within the folds of the Star Wars mythos lies a realm so strange, so unlike anything else in the galaxy, that even Jedi Masters feared its implications. The Temple of Mortis, not a temple built of stone and mortar like those on Coruscant or Jedha, but a realm, a pocket dimension that exists outside the known galaxy, where time bends and reality itself shifts to accommodate something far older than the Jedi, older even than the Sith, a place where the Force isn't just felt, it lives. The Mortis Arc, seen only briefly in the Clone Wars, opened a door to one of the most enigmatic and misunderstood mysteries in all of Star Wars. It introduced us to the Father, the Son, and the Daughter, three beings who represent the fundamental forces within the Force itself. The Daughter, embodying the light, the Son, the dark, and the Father, the delicate balance between them. But what were they really? Were they gods, force-wielding titans from an age before time, or something else entirely? Anakin Skywalker was brought to Mortis not by chance, but by cosmic design. It was here, far from the reach of the Jedi Council or Palpatine's whispers, that his true identity as the Chosen One was laid bare. The Father tested him, saw the power within him, and pleaded for Anakin to take his place, to maintain balance in this fragile realm for eternity. But Anakin refused. He feared what he saw in himself, the dark potential he couldn't yet understand. And so, he left. But Mortis was never truly done with him. Here's where the mystery deepens. The events on Mortis seem to vanish from memory. When Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka leave, they remember nothing, as if the realm itself wanted to remain secret, untouched. But why? Was Mortis merely a vision, a dream shaped by the Force to test them? Or was it a real place, one so dangerous that even remembering it would be a threat? Some believe that Mortis is a remnant of a forgotten era, a time when Force wielders walked as titans, building civilizations that rose and fell long before the Republic. The architecture, the glowing symbols etched into stone, none of it aligns with anything known in Jedi or Sith records. It's as if Mortis exists outside of history itself, untouched by the wars and politics of the galaxy. The Son, full of rage and ambition, tried to seduce Anakin. He showed him visions of the future, of himself as Darth Vader, burning the galaxy down in a storm of fire and betrayal. And yet, Anakin's mind was wiped. He left unaware of the darkness he would one day become. Was that the will of the Force, or a manipulation by the Father, trying to delay what was already set in motion. Then there's the symbolism. The daughter sacrifices herself to save Ahsoka, light giving itself to preserve innocence. The son's anger consumes him, ultimately leading to his death, and the father, heartbroken, allows himself to pass, saying balance can only be maintained by someone truly neutral, someone like Anakin, or perhaps someone else. What happened to Mortis after the trio left? Is it still there, waiting? Has anyone else ever found it? There are whispers, obscure references, buried in Jedi texts, long hidden in the libraries of Ossus and Achto. Fragments of legends speak of a realm of mirrors where the Force becomes a living entity. Some scholars believe Mortis is not the only such place, that it's part of a larger network of ancient domains tied to the raw essence of the Force itself, places where reality is thinner and the veil between life and death disappears. And perhaps that's the greatest mystery of all. Mortis may not be a place you find. It may be a place that finds you when the Force decides you're ready, when your soul is balanced precariously between the light and the dark, and the universe holds its breath to see which way you'll fall. And Anakin, he was just the beginning. Part 16, The Unknown Regions. Secrets beyond the edge of the galaxy, beyond the edge of every star chart, past the last navigational beacon of the galaxy, there's a darkness that the Republic never dared to explore. The Unknown Regions. A vast and silent ocean of uncharted stars, gravitational anomalies, and distorted time. A region so unstable that even hyperspace routes seem to break apart upon entry. But while the Republic labeled it as unreachable, and the Jedi feared what lay within, others were drawn to it, especially the Sith. Palpatine, always several moves ahead, became obsessed with the unknown regions. Not for conquest, but for what he believed lay hidden deep inside. An ancient power, a source of knowledge and control that predated even the Sith order. He spoke rarely of it, but when he did, it was with reverence and fear. It was here, beyond known space, that he sent secret expeditions, deep science fleets, Force-sensitive operatives, and elite Imperial commanders. Most never returned, but some did, and what they spoke of defied belief. Star systems trapped in permanent eclipse, entire planets that whispered through the Force, as if alive, massive ruins of non-human origin, overgrown and cold, yet humming with energy no scanner could identify. These weren't ruins of the Republic, or the Jedi, or even the Rakata. These were older, timeless. Some speculate this was the domain of the Ancient Ones, the original wielders of the Force before it had a name, creatures or beings so attuned to the raw flow of reality that they didn't need lightsabers or temples. They simply were. And among their remnants were technologies and artifacts unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Holocrons that responded only to thought, stone structures that shifted dimensionally when touched, weapons that consumed not just matter, but memory. Palpatine believed these secrets would allow him to transcend mortality. He wasn't content with ruling the galaxy. He wanted to become part of the Force itself, to bend it, manipulate it. And so, deep into the unknown regions, he reached. Even his secret Sith observatory on Jakku was built not to control that desert world, but to chart paths through the gravitational chaos to reach this forbidden sector. But it wasn't just him. The Chiss Ascendancy, Thrawn's people, had survived in the unknown regions for generations, and they spoke of even darker threats, beings they called the Grisk, ruthless, calculating invaders who fed on control, manipulation, and psychological warfare. But even the Grisk, ancient as they are, may only be pawns in a larger game. Whispers hint at a force that watches the galaxy from afar, waiting, a predator that feeds not on power, but on fear. There are legends buried deep in lost Sith holocrons of a celestial event known only as the Dimming, a time when the stars in the unknown regions go dark one by one, not due to age, but as if consumed. The Jedi never acknowledged these tales, but Sith lords, they obsessed over them. And perhaps the most chilling mystery, Anakin Skywalker, long before he fell, once had a vision. He saw himself standing at the edge of a starless void, Beyond all known space, there were voices, millions of them, calling to him in languages not heard in 1,000 millennia, begging, warning. One voice, however, rose above the rest. It was his own, but older, weary, and it whispered, "Don't go further. It's watching." Whether that vision was prophecy, memory, or madness, we'll never know. But if the unknown regions truly hold the answers Palpatine sought, and if they contain threats older than time itself, then the galaxy may not be ruled by empires or Jedi, but by something far older and infinitely more patient. Part 17. The Lost Temples of the Force, structures that shouldn't exist. Across the galaxy, hidden beneath oceans, buried in mountain ranges and swallowed by jungle worlds, long erased from galactic maps, lie the ruins of ancient temples. Not Jedi, not Sith. Something else, older. Their architecture doesn't follow any known pattern. Their stonework predates the invention of hyperdrive. And inside them are symbols that resemble the Force itself. Spirals, duality, flowing currents, carved as if whoever built them didn't just understand the Force, but lived within it. These temples are scattered, disconnected by distance, but eerily aligned by purpose. A temple on Lothal hums with energy, even when untouched. Another buried on Jedha predates the Kyber mines, its inscriptions speaking of balance before the first Jedi even lit a saber. Then there's Ahch-To, the island planet Luke Skywalker sought in exile. At first glance, it appears quiet, isolated, but beneath its surface are cavernous halls and tide-carved shrines, still resonating with an energy that even Luke, with all his training, couldn't fully understand. What makes these sites so chilling is that they appear designed not just to channel the Force, but to contain it, as if their builders feared what it might become. In some temples, the flow of time behaves oddly. A few researchers claimed days passed inside while only hours passed outside. Others reported visions, haunting ones, of stars going dark, of wars between Force wielders whose abilities defy even modern imagination. One temple in particular, long forgotten on the frozen moon of Vasilra, is said to pulse when Force sensitives approach. Not glow, not emit heat, but pulse like a heartbeat. When Jedi Masters entered it, during the final days of the Republic, they emerged silent, changed. Some abandoned the Order. One vanished entirely. No record explains what they saw inside. Then there are the holocrons. In many temples, they are found embedded directly into the stone, almost as if grown into the architecture. But these aren't Jedi or Sith holocrons. They open without activation, playing visions of galaxies unknown, and beings so massive they dwarf star destroyers. And the voices, they speak a language no droid can translate, yet Force users understand it intuitively. It bypasses language entirely, speaking directly to thought. Palpatine once scoured these temples, secretly, even sending Vader to recover artifacts from a submerged ruin on Deluge that bled with dark side energy. But Vader reported something strange. Not resistance, not danger, but warning. The temple didn't want to be found. It pushed back, clouding coordinates, causing shuttle systems to fail. And when Vader forced entry, the structure began to collapse, as if it had fulfilled its purpose and was choosing to disappear again. The existence of these temples rewrites everything. What if the Jedi and the Sith are just recent echoes of something far older? What if the Force was once openly used, not as light or dark, but as an element, like air or fire? And what if that knowledge was buried on purpose? One theory whispers that the galaxy suffered a cataclysmic war between Force-wielding civilizations before recorded history. The temples? They weren't shrines. They were warnings, anchors, last attempts to stabilize the Force before it tore reality apart. And the most haunting detail? Each temple appears to be part of a pattern, a galactic sigil, only visible when all are mapped together, a design that resembles a gateway or a seal, not to keep something in, but to keep something out. Part 18, Palpatine's Secret Projects, the Hidden Experiments Beyond Death. We all know Palpatine was a master manipulator, the puppet master behind the fall of the Republic, the rise of the Empire, and even the corruption of Anakin Skywalker himself. But what most don't know is that his thirst for power didn't stop with ruling the galaxy. It reached into the unknown, into death itself. Because Palpatine wasn't just afraid of dying, he believed death was a door, and he wanted to control what lay on the other side. Clues to these experiments don't come from standard Imperial records. They come from black site facilities, buried in forgotten moons, from strange disappearances of Force-sensitive children across the galaxy, and from whispers, stories told by defectors, bounty hunters, and those who barely escaped his reach. One of his earliest secret programs was known as the Eclipse Protocol. Hidden deep beneath the surface of Exegol, beyond the Sith Citadel, beyond the visible labs, was a massive underground chamber filled with cloning tanks, ancient Sith relics, and something even darker. Caged anomalies, creatures and remnants Palpatine believed were fragments of the Force itself. Things pulled from other realities, other timelines, or perhaps from the space between. Here, Palpatine began experimenting with immortality, not just through cloning, but through soul transference. He believed the Force could be fractured, like glass, and reassembled in a vessel of his choosing. Many of his test subjects were clones of himself. Some were deformed, unstable. Others survived only days, but a few were different. They didn't speak. They simply watched, like they remembered more than they should have, like they weren't just vessels, but had something else inside. This wasn't just about preserving life. Palpatine believed he could split the Force within himself, take only the most powerful aspects, and place them into a perfect host, a body forged not just of flesh, but of Sith alchemy and ancient kyber energy, one that could bend time, evade death, surpass even the greatest Jedi legends. But he feared something too, something he called the Echo. Recovered documents refer to it as a ripple in the Force that began appearing shortly after the Clone Wars, a presence that watched his every move. At first he believed it to be a surviving Jedi, but over time he became convinced it was something else, something older, a consciousness woven into the Force itself, something that couldn't be killed. He began to build what he called containment engines, devices placed inside asteroids and moons, hidden behind gravitational anomalies. Their sole purpose, to trap whatever this Echo was if it ever manifested. Some believe these were never meant to contain a being, but a version of himself, as if Palpatine feared that his own experiments had created another him, one that wasn't bound by flesh at all. We know from The Rise of Skywalker that Palpatine returned in a cloned form, but what we don't see is the failed ones, the ones that went mad, the ones that could see through time, the ones that whispered in voices not their own. Some of these escaped. At least one was said to have made its way to the unknown regions, taking command of a forgotten fleet and calling itself the Last Voice. No records confirm it, but strange signals from those regions continue to this day. Broadcasts in Palpatine's voice, saying things he never said. The dark is not gone, it only sleeps. The most disturbing clue comes from a former Sith cultist who defected to the New Republic after the fall of the Empire. He claimed Palpatine succeeded in one thing. He preserved memories within the Force, not his own, but those of others, Jedi, Sith, entire battles. He could replay them, recreate them, twist them, and use them to learn every possible future, like a god scanning timelines. If that's true, then even now, long after his final death, the galaxy might still be moving along a path he saw long ago, a path he nudged, not with soldiers, not with fleets, but with shadows. And if he left behind echoes, what else did he leave behind? The ancient enigma of Master Yoda. There are figures in the Star Wars saga whose very presence changes the atmosphere of every scene they're in, characters whose power is evident in every word, every movement. But even among the greatest warriors, tacticians, and Force users, one name remains shrouded in a kind of quiet reverence, whispered like a myth older than time itself: Yoda. For over 900 years, he served the Jedi Order, a master to many, a teacher to legends, a witness to centuries of galactic change. But what do we truly know about him? What secrets lie behind those deep, contemplative eyes? In a galaxy bursting with detail, backstory, and canon, Yoda's origins remain an intentional blank space, a shadow behind the light. Let's begin not with what we know, but what we don't. No one knows the name of Yoda's species, not in canon, not in the extended universe, not even in ancient Jedi texts. In a franchise that categorizes nearly every creature, planet, and culture with encyclopedic detail, the choice to leave Yoda's race unnamed is not an oversight. It's deliberate. Even George Lucas himself famously instructed the writers, Yoda's species is to remain a mystery. Why? Is it a storytelling decision to preserve mystique? Or is there something more, something ancient, something dangerous? In ancient galactic records, long before the Republic rose, long before the Jedi even understood the full reach of the Force, there were whispers of a primordial race, beings not born, but manifested through the very will of the Force, entities so attuned to its energy that they seemed less like living organisms and more like extensions of the Force itself. Some theories suggest Yoda may be a remnant of this era, a living conduit, a physical manifestation of balance itself. And yet, Yoda was not alone. We've seen others of his kind. Yaddle, a female member of the Jedi High Council, silent but powerful, vanished under mysterious circumstances. Her appearances were sparse, her story almost entirely unwritten, and more recently, the emergence of Grogu, the child, known to many as Baby Yoda, a being so young, yet so strong in the Force that even the most hardened warriors paused in awe. 3 beings, the same unknown species, all 3 deeply connected to the Force, all 3 bound by a silence about their origins. What if this species isn't simply rare, but hidden? Could they be in exile, choosing not to interact with the galaxy at large? Or perhaps they are protectors of knowledge so ancient, so powerful, that to speak it aloud would endanger the balance of the Force itself. After all, isn't it strange that a Jedi of such power, wisdom, and insight never once spoke of where he came from? Not to his students, not to the Council, not to Obi-Wan, not even to Luke. Throughout his time on the Council, Yoda was a pillar of Jedi philosophy, often correcting others when their emotions clouded their judgment. But what if this wasn't just wisdom earned through time? What if Yoda had already seen civilizations rise and fall long before the modern Jedi Order? What if his understanding of the Force came not only from experience, but from lineage? Imagine a world hidden in the outer reaches of the galaxy, lush with life, strong in the Force, protected by secrecy, and untouched by the wars of the galaxy. A homeworld for beings like Yoda, a place where time moves differently, where the Force is not taught, but breathed. If this world exists, then Yoda is not unique, but a scout, a sentinel, sent into the galaxy not merely as a Jedi, but as a guardian of balance, from a civilization whose power and responsibility are so immense. Their anonymity is their only protection. There's also the question of longevity. Yoda lived for 900 years. We've only ever seen a few beings in the galaxy reach such an age. Even powerful Force users like Palpatine, Plagueis, and Bane needed unnatural extensions of life. Cloning, Sith alchemy, forbidden arts. But Yoda's age seems natural, peaceful. His body aged, but his connection to the Force only deepened. He didn't just live for centuries, he endured them, and when he finally passed, it wasn't in violence, but in peace, fading into the Force like a whisper returning to the wind. In death, he became more powerful than ever, retaining his consciousness, guiding Luke, watching over the galaxy even as it burned and rebuilt itself. And then, in the final chapters of the saga, he returns, his ghost still playful, still wise, and still more powerful than most living Jedi. And we're left with a final question. If Yoda was not the last of his kind, if others like him still exist, watching, waiting, untouched by war, what will happen if they choose to return? What secrets could they reveal? What hidden knowledge do they possess that could shift the fate of the galaxy in a single moment? Or worse, what if they never left? The untold mystery of Mace Windu. In the grand halls of the Jedi Temple, amidst legends like Yoda, Obi-Wan, and Qui-Gon, there stood one Jedi who always seemed apart, not by distance, not by rebellion, but by sheer presence. Mace Windu wasn't just a master. He was a force of nature, the kind of Jedi you don't question, you just follow. But beneath the polished armor of the Jedi Council's enforcer, behind the cold logic and bold tactics, there's something deeper, something unresolved, something hidden. Let's begin with what we know. Mace Windu was born on Harun Kal, a planet ravaged by brutal natural conditions. Survival wasn't a guarantee. It was a daily battle. From the very beginning, Mace was forged by struggle. And in that struggle, something awakened inside him, a unique connection to the Force, a clarity, a control that the Jedi had rarely seen before. But this clarity came with something else, something darker. Unlike most Jedi, who feared the temptation of the dark side, Mace studied it, not to embrace it, but to understand it, to tame it. And through this understanding, he developed something never seen before in the Jedi Order, a lightsaber form known as Vapad. Vapad wasn't just a fighting style, it was a philosophy, a dangerous dance on the edge of light and shadow. It channeled one's inner darkness into combat, not to give in to the dark side, but to use its raw energy against itself. It was a form so dangerous, so tempting, that most Jedi avoided it entirely. Only one mastered it, Mace Windu. But here's the thing, to wield Vapad, you have to touch the darkness, you have to taste it, and not fall. That requires more than discipline. It requires balance, a balance so fine that a single misstep could mean corruption, ruin, death. So the question becomes, how did Mace Windu maintain that balance? And more importantly, did he? Some theories suggest Mace Windu wasn't just skirting the edge of the dark side, he was already partially immersed in it, not corrupted, but changed. A gray Jedi, in all but name. One who followed the code, but interpreted it through a lens of power and pragmatism. One who believed that peace sometimes required control. That balance might mean dominance. And perhaps he wasn't wrong. He wasn't like Yoda, who spoke in riddles and patience. He wasn't like Obi-Wan, a product of idealism. Mace Windu was decisive, sharp, ruthless when he had to be. When he confronted Palpatine, he didn't hesitate. No trial, no discussion, just action. He knew. He knew Anakin couldn't be trusted. He sensed the weight of the Sith rising long before others did. And when the final moment came, when Windu stood over a defeated Darth Sidious, saber raised, he was ready to do what no Jedi ever dared, end it. Not out of vengeance, not from hatred, but because he believed it was the only way to preserve the light. And yet, fate had other plans. Anakin's betrayal didn't just end Windu's life. It ended a philosophy, a possibility. The Jedi Order's most powerful warrior fell not because he failed, but because he was right too early. But here's where it gets strange. Mace Windu fell, but we never saw the body. Thrown from a window, yes. Arm severed, electrocuted. But in Star Wars, survival after worse has happened more times than we can count. Darth Maul, split in half, survived. The Emperor himself returned from death. So why not Windu? Some believe he didn't die. There are whispers in the Outer Rim, fragments in the databanks of scattered droids, and rumors from Force-sensitive wanderers, stories of a lone warrior, scarred, older, watching from the shadows. A Jedi who no longer follows the code, but guards its remnants, protecting the galaxy from forces that neither Sith nor Jedi understand. Could it be Windu? If he survived, he would have been a broken man, betrayed by the Chosen One, abandoned by the Force he dedicated his life to, but perhaps reborn, wiser, harsher, a silent guardian of balance, no longer bound by politics or council seats, but by the purity of action. Some even believe he trained others in secret, that he helped guide certain events post-Order 66, that while Yoda and Obi-Wan hid in exile, Windu chose a different path, the shadows, watching, waiting, and acting when needed. And then there's the purple lightsaber. It's more than color. It's a statement. In the Jedi Order, saber colors are symbolic. Green for wisdom, blue for guardianship, but purple. It's rare, unique, and in Windu's case, entirely personal. The color represents a mix of light and dark, a balance, a willingness to confront darkness without being consumed. Windu's lightsaber was a warning, to friend and foe alike, so we're left with a legend, a warrior who danced with the dark and lived by the light, a Jedi who saw the future and tried to stop it, and maybe a guardian who still walks among the stars, no longer needing a temple or a title, because his mission is eternal. Mace Windu's story didn't end with a fall. The untold mysteries of Master Qui-Gon Jinn. Among the many Jedi whose names echo through the history of the galaxy, few are as enigmatic, as quietly rebellious, or as deeply mystical as Master Qui-Gon Jinn. While others followed the Jedi Code with unwavering loyalty, Qui-Gon often stood apart, walking a path guided not by doctrine, but by the Force itself. And it is this defiance, this spiritual depth, that casts a long shadow of mystery over his life and his legacy. Qui-Gon Jinn was not a Jedi who sought rank or recognition. Despite his immense skill and wisdom, he turned down a position on the Jedi High Council. To most, that would be unthinkable. But to Qui-Gon, being on the council meant politics. It meant compromise. And compromise, in the eyes of a true servant of the Force, could be dangerous. What did Qui-Gon see that the others didn't? Some believe he had visions, moments of profound insight that showed him glimpses of a future shaped by imbalance. Others suggest that he had uncovered ancient teachings long buried by the Jedi Order, perhaps found in lost holocrons or hidden Jedi temples. It's been theorized that Qui-Gon was secretly studying what some have called the living Force, a more immediate, instinctual current of energy, different from the unifying force that the Jedi Council revered. This belief set him apart. It made him unpredictable, dangerous even. And yet, his intuition was almost always right. He was the first Jedi to sense the extraordinary potential in Anakin Skywalker. While others saw only a child, Qui-Gon saw destiny. He didn't hesitate. He didn't question. He knew. But was it simply a feeling or something more? Had Qui-Gon seen Anakin in a vision long before their paths ever crossed on Tatooine? Some whisper of a theory that Qui-Gon was guided by ancient prophecies, ones even older than the one about the Chosen One. Prophecies so old, so obscure, that even the Jedi archives had forgotten them. If that were true, then perhaps Qui-Gon's defiance wasn't just stubbornness, it was faith. Faith in a destiny too big for the Council to see. But the mystery deepens even more when we examine what happened after his death. Unlike any Jedi before him, Qui-Gon became the first to manifest a presence in the Force after death, not just as a fading echo or residual energy, but as an enduring consciousness, one that could speak, guide, and even appear. He discovered the secret to immortality through the Force, and he did it alone, long before Yoda, long before Obi-Wan, long before Anakin. How? How did Qui-Gon Jinn unlock this forgotten technique when no one else even knew it was possible? Some believe he learned it from ancient Force users, possibly even the Wills, mysterious beings connected to the very fabric of the Force itself. Others suggest he communed with the Force in a way no Jedi dared, that he allowed himself to become vulnerable, fully surrendered, unshackled by tradition, until the Force revealed its deepest truths to him. And if that's true, then what else did he discover? There are stories, scattered accounts in forgotten scrolls and untranslated records, suggesting Qui-Gon may have tapped into an ancient memory of the galaxy, a kind of Force-based collective consciousness, a stream of knowledge that predates the Jedi Order itself. If so, his knowledge of life after death may have just been the beginning. What if Qui-Gon glimpsed something coming? Something beyond Palpatine, beyond Vader, something the Jedi weren't prepared to face. And now, in quiet moments across the galaxy, Jedi still meditate on the words Qui-Gon left behind. They ponder his teachings, his warnings, his unshakable belief in listening to the Force, not to the Council. He was dismissed in his time, labeled a maverick. But today, many Jedi wonder, what if Qui-Gon was the last of the true Jedi? His defiance wasn't rebellion, but clarity, and as his voice still echoes across the veil of death, whispering through the Force to those who will listen, we are left with the chilling thought: did he know what was coming all along? The Enigma of Kylo Ren. Before we delve deeper into Kylo Ren's mysterious journey, let's pause and reflect on this. What makes a person, or in this case, a powerful Force user, choose the dark side so completely? Kylo Ren's story is not just about power, but about identity, choices, and the weight of legacy. The mystery of his connection to Darth Vader, his internal struggle, and the enigmatic Force powers he wields have left us questioning. Could Kylo Ren be the most tragic figure in Star Wars, or is he just another pawn in a much larger game? Let's explore the many layers of Kylo Ren's enigma and unravel the dark and light that defines him. The legacy of the dark side. Kylo Ren, born as Ben Solo, is one of the most fascinating and tragic characters in the Star Wars saga. His journey is one of conflict, internal struggle, and ultimately, a deeper mystery about his connection to the Force, his heritage, and the dark side. From his beginnings as the son of Han Solo and Leia Organa to his rise as the supreme leader of the First Order, Kylo Ren's path is filled with unanswered questions and deep layers of emotional complexity. What drives him to embrace the dark side so fully, and why is his destiny tied to the legacy of Darth Vader? The first mystery surrounding Kylo Ren lies in his unusual connection to his grandfather, Darth Vader. Kylo Ren idolizes Vader, seeing him as a tragic yet powerful figure. But what exactly fuels this obsession? Was it simply the legacy of his grandfather's power, or did Kylo Ren feel an intrinsic pull to the dark side, as if the Force itself was leading him to follow in Vader's footsteps? This connection to Vader is something that many theorize isn't just symbolic. It's as if Kylo Ren's own Force sensitivity was almost predestined, as if the dark side was meant to be passed down through the generations. The fact that Kylo Ren could hear Vader's voice in his mind, especially when making critical decisions, suggests that there's a deeper, almost supernatural connection between the two. Was this the Force trying to guide him? Or was it the remnants of Darth Vader's spirit lingering within the very bloodline he left behind? Kylo Ren's turn to the dark side is shrouded in mystery. As a child, he was trained by his uncle, Luke Skywalker, but something went terribly wrong. Kylo Ren's inner conflict was evident, and the pain he felt from his own feelings of inadequacy and his inability to control his power led him down a dangerous path. Yet, the question remains, what truly made Ben Solo abandon everything he had known? Was it simply the influence of Supreme Leader Snoke, or was it something deeper, perhaps a vulnerability in the Force itself that Kylo Ren could not resist? The events leading to Ben Solo's fall remain clouded in secrecy, leaving us to wonder how much of his choice to embrace the dark side was truly his own, and how much was influenced by external forces. His connection to the Force is also unlike any we've seen before. Kylo Ren's mastery of the Force is extraordinary, but it's not just about his raw power. His abilities seem to manifest in strange, unexplained ways. One of the most intriguing aspects of his power is his ability to perform Force projection. This skill is a rare and dangerous use of the Force, and Kylo Ren's ability to project his consciousness across vast distances is something that not only speaks to his immense power, but also to the deep mystery of his connection to the Force itself. Was he born with this gift, or did he develop it over time through intense meditation and dark side training? And why does it seem to come so naturally to him, even as others struggle to harness their own Force abilities? But perhaps the most compelling mystery surrounding Kylo Ren is his internal conflict. Throughout his journey, he is torn between his desire to finish what Darth Vader started and his lingering attachment to his family. His connection to Rey is equally mysterious. From the moment they first connected through the Force, there was an undeniable bond between them. Kylo Ren, often seen as a ruthless, power-hungry individual, begins to show signs of vulnerability when he faces Rey. Their shared experiences and growing connection complicate his path. This raises another question. Is Kylo Ren truly beyond redemption, or is he simply a lost soul, searching for a way to reconcile his dark side with the light that still exists within him? His internal battle with the light side, especially in his moments with Rey, challenges the very nature of the dark side itself. Does Kylo Ren represent the idea that redemption is possible, even for those who have fallen so far? Then, there is the mystery of Snoke's role in all of this. For much of the sequel trilogy, Snoke is portrayed as the puppeteer behind Kylo Ren, but his true origins are never fully explained. Why was Snoke chosen to be Kylo Ren's mentor, and how did he come to have such influence over him? Was Snoke merely a figurehead, a tool for a greater power, or was he the true instigator of Kylo Ren's fall? His mysterious background remains a puzzle, and his death at the hands of Kylo Ren only deepens the mystery. Did Snoke play a part in Kylo Ren's path, or was he just another pawn in a much larger game? One of the most intriguing moments in Kylo Ren's story comes at the moment of his supposed death. When Rey and Kylo Ren are forced to confront their destinies, Kylo Ren finds himself at a crossroads. In the final battle against Emperor Palpatine, Kylo Ren chooses not to continue his pursuit of the dark side, finally choosing to break free from the legacy of his grandfather. But what happens next? Did Kylo Ren die as the last of the Sith, or is his legacy tied to something greater? Is there more to Kylo Ren's story than meets the eye, especially given that his arc ends with a significant act of redemption? What's even more fascinating is how Kylo Ren's destiny ties into the greater saga of Star Wars. His story is not just one of redemption or damnation, but one of choice. Kylo Ren represents the battle between light and dark, and his story, ultimately, is about the choices he makes in a world that is constantly shifting between the two forces. His journey shows us that destiny is not a straight path, but a tangled web of choices, actions, and consequences. Kylo Ren's mystery is one of the most compelling in the Star Wars universe. It's a story of conflict, transformation, and ultimately, the search for identity in a galaxy torn apart by war. The enigma of his character is not just about his power or his past, but about the choices he faces and the way his story resonates with the age-old struggle between good and evil. With Kylo Ren, the question remains, is he a product of the dark side, or is he simply a young man lost in a universe that refuses to let him find his way? We've spoken of ancient masters, vanished empires, and forbidden force secrets, but none have carried the weight of destiny quite like him. His journey began not in a palace or a temple, but under the quiet skies of a desert moon. A simple farm boy, guided by visions, shaped by loss, and destined to stand alone at the edge of light and shadow. But who was Luke Skywalker? Really? Was he just the last Jedi of a fallen order? Or something far more mysterious? Let's go deeper now. Into the story behind the legend, the choices he never explained, the powers he may have uncovered, and the questions that still echo long after he disappeared. Because if there is one truth about Luke Skywalker, it's that his silence may have hidden more than we ever imagined. Now, let's begin. There is something quietly haunting about the tale of Luke Skywalker, the farm boy turned Jedi Knight, the symbol of hope for an entire galaxy, the hero who destroyed the Empire, only to vanish into legend. And when we finally found him again, years later on a distant island, surrounded by the endless roar of ocean waves, he was no longer the warrior we remembered. He was changed, hardened, withdrawn, and silent. But why? What truly happened to Luke Skywalker in those missing years between the fall of the Empire and the rise of the First Order? What ancient truths did he uncover, buried deep within Jedi texts and Force-laden ruins? And more importantly, what did he choose to keep hidden? This is the part of the saga that is barely spoken of. It is not about battles or starships. It is about secrets. One so profound that even Luke, the last Jedi of his time, chose solitude over leadership, chose exile over legacy, and that choice may have reshaped the fate of the galaxy more than any war ever could. Let's begin at the end of the original trilogy. After the Battle of Endor, Luke stood triumphant. He had resisted the pull of the dark side. He had saved his father, redeemed Anakin Skywalker in his final breath, and defeated the Emperor. At that moment, he could have become anything: a leader, a general, a teacher. The galaxy looked to him as the future of the Jedi. And yet, he disappeared. For years, he wandered, searching not for power, but for answers. Luke's journey after the fall of the Empire is barely documented, but fragments of ancient lore whisper about his path. He sought out the earliest temples of the Jedi Order, on planets older than Coruscant itself. He studied scrolls written in languages only the Force could interpret, and he came face to face with a truth that frightened even him. The Force is not as simple as light and dark. It is not a weapon. It is not a tool. It is a living, breathing presence that spans the entire galaxy, one that has been misunderstood and perhaps even misused by both Jedi and Sith. Luke came to realize something many Jedi never did, that the Jedi Order had become too rigid, too blind, too sure of its own righteousness, and in their arrogance, they had failed again and again. This is the Luke we find on Ahch-To, the first Jedi Temple planet, a place where it all began, and possibly where he intended it all to end. He wasn't just hiding, he was reflecting, learning, unlearning. The ancient Jedi texts that Rey discovered, those were remnants of teachings even Yoda barely mentioned, rituals, philosophies, prophecies, forgotten knowledge that painted a very different picture of the Force. There are whispers, unconfirmed, but tantalizing, that Luke may have learned of something ancient, something the Jedi of old tried to bury, a force that does not obey the binary of light and dark, a source older than the Jedi, older than the Sith, something primal, unshaped, and unpredictable. And then, there's the matter of Ben Solo. When Luke sensed the darkness in Ben, he didn't act out of hatred or anger, he acted out of fear. A split-second hesitation, a moment of weakness, a flicker of uncertainty. That moment would echo through time. And Luke could never forgive himself. He saw history repeating itself. He saw Anakin and Ben. He saw the downfall of everything he had tried to rebuild, and that fear, that guilt, led him to step away from it all. But stepping away came with a cost, because in his absence, darkness returned stronger than ever. But here's the deeper question no one dares ask. Did Luke let it happen? Was there something he saw in those ancient texts, a vision of the galaxy's future that required him to not intervene? Some theories suggest Luke believed the Jedi had to truly disappear for the balance to be restored, that the Force needed to reset without interference, that perhaps the rise of Rey, a Force sensitive with no Jedi training or legacy, was the natural answer to that reset. And maybe Luke knew all along. His final act, projecting himself across the galaxy to confront Kylo Ren, wasn't just a display of power. It was a message, a myth reborn. Luke Skywalker returned not as a warrior, but as a symbol of defiance, of hope, of something greater than the man himself. But his mystery doesn't end with death. Luke's Force ghost behaves differently from those before him. He interacts with the world. He catches objects. He sits. He exerts influence. This raises profound questions about what he became. Did he truly become one with the Force? Or something more? Could Luke Skywalker have transcended even the state of Force ghost? Could he have accessed the very source of the Force, the mythical wellspring that lies at the heart of the galaxy's power? Some ancient texts hint at Jedi who moved beyond life and death, beings who became guardians of the Force itself. Luke may have joined them. We may never know the full truth of what he discovered, or what he chose not to share. But one thing is certain. Luke Skywalker's story did not end on that island. It expanded beyond flesh and form, into myth, mystery, and maybe even something eternal. He was not the last Jedi, but perhaps he was the first of something new, and that is a legacy more powerful than any lightsaber. So here we are. As you drift now into sleep, surrounded by the stillness of stars and the quiet hum of hyperspace engines echoing in the distance, remember this: the greatest mystery of the Force may not be its power. It may be that we're all part of it, and one day, when the galaxy is quiet, we might finally hear what it's been trying to tell us all along. Sleep well, traveler. The Force will be with you, always.